In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast, we are the brave and the bold. The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Please note the explicit content indicator. This means that I use adult language. I do not speak in a humorless, public radio, hushed monotone. I am excited and enthusiastic about the information that I present and the topics I discuss. You will hear ice rattle in my glass throughout the show. On the show, I joke about bodily functions, sex acts, religion, and politics. The topics may seem random or scattered through the back catalog. A list of show topics in chronological order is provided on the featured topic link at Advertise.com. If any of these issues might trigger you, this might not be the podcast for you, and I wish you good luck finding a show more to your liking. It's that time again. The music is low. The party is over. The fire is dying down, and all the ordinary people passed out long ago. Now we are the only ones left. Hey everybody, it's John. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to get right to it here. But first, this month's infographics, if you sign into the Fulgar Correspondentia / the mailing list. Since we're heading into the kind of the end of the Genesis series we've been working on, there's a brief Genesis timeline according to me. It's all updated to exactly where we are on the episodes. Also, since we're getting into Jacob and Esau, I finally sat down and started doing this map of the wrong son / wrong curse / wrong blessing idea that we've been kind of bumping up against since we started this thing. I think it's pretty cool. You can also get a sneak peek of the tarot cards that I'm designing. I'm also doing showing them off on Instagram if you don't want to sign up to the mailing list, but you want to check out the tarot cards there. This month's Fellowcraft episode, we are starting to look at and dissect the work of Milton William Cooper in an episode entitled The UFO Conspiracy Part 1. It's a fun episode, and it's going to lead right into next month's episode. Do you know what that's going to be called? Part 2. This episode, we have a returning guest, Lisa, from a brand spanking new podcast called The Immortal Hour is on, and she talks about sort of her journey, her practice, kind of like her advice. It's an awesome episode, and she's got a lot of great information. So I can't wait to get to that. And before we go, let's just here's a toast to my Patreon. Here's a toast to our Patreon supporters, because this show's not just mine; it's ours, bros. It's all of our shows. So here's a toast to our Patreon supporters and Subscribestar supporters. Here's to you. Another day, another bender. No retreat and no surrender. Let's get to it.
This call is being recorded.
All right. On the phone, we have Lisa from the Immortal Hour Podcast. Are you there? Hello.
I'm here. Hello, everybody.
Hey, welcome back to the show. And congratulations on the launch of your new podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. It was
Do you want
a process.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it before we get started?
Okay. It's just a creative project. I'm kind of a bookworm, I guess. And, I don't hear, you talk about this stuff, but not everybody talks about this stuff, and I don't even know, like, the occult stuff. I don't know, like, I feel like it's getting forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this weird impulse to kind of bring it back out, like highlight certain people and pick something out of like an old book to say, look how practical this is. Like, this isn't like, this is useful information,
Right. Yeah. And I think that we see eye to eye on the fact that it's got to be the old stuff. The older, the better. Do you
Right.
agree?
Yes. Yes. And I think some people, I don't know, like it got lost a little bit somehow. Like, I don't even know if they understand that it's useful. I don't know what they think of it. I think, they think Hollywood stuff about it,
Yeah. So I really enjoyed your, I think it's your second episode about the psychic defenses and all in that. That's the second episode, right?
It's the first one.
The first one?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed that it was like the way that you set it up is describing it as, imagining you setting up your defenses. And
Right.
you were like, you could have like tanks and walls and towers and all of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting because stuff that I say often is, well, maybe not as often as I should, but the lack of imaginative play, like in our culture.
Right.
And I think that kind of ties into it. Like, what if there was some evil shit trying to get down into my studio? Like, how would I defend myself?
Right.
So,
Right.
it's not that, like, yeah, sure, there's plenty of play. Like, everyone's walking around playing on their cell phones and their PlayStations and all that stuff. But what I mean is like the imaginative play, like instead of being instead of being passive about it, like working on your own creativity. I thought it was super interesting.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, it helped.
Yeah, I was trying to look at Deanne Fortune, who's I like a lot. I was trying to bring something out of that, like how she touches on psychology and psychiatry or whatever. Like when something happens to you, like how you have to look at it, how you have to examine it. You know what I mean? Like, and she talks about the only way to get into your subconscious, the only way for somebody to attack you is through fear or desire, because those are the two things that penetrate inside get in your head,
Right. Yeah.
And then I just wanted that to me, because it's in your head, the imagination feeds it. So I don't know, I kind of tried to come up with a way to describe that. By encouraging you to use your imagination.
Yeah. Well, so I've been talking on the show a lot about my fasting, that I'm doing the fasting, and your episode really helped me because it's like, I'm like, oh, come on, I could just get like a sandwich. And I just imagine like barbed wire, like stretching across my, refrigerator. And I'm just like, no.
Good.
Okay. So, where were you born? Where did you grow up at?
Maryland. I was born in Maryland, outside of Baltimore.
Okay. Were you raised in a religious environment?
I knew that was coming. And I can't wait to tell you, because most of the people, and I hear you ask that question and I've heard other people bring it up on podcasts, and they always ask, were you raised in a religious background? And most people say yes, and you guys have all these stories about it, and I was not at all. Nobody.
Nobody.
Nobody went to church. No, even when I do my ancestry, like when did people, like, they don't go to church? I guess we're heathens. I don't know. But so I was not raised in a typical religious based household at all.
Okay.
My mother believed in God. She called it God, but she was really passionate about, I don't need to go to a place and have some man tell me, like, you know what I mean? Like, go read a Bible if you want to, learn about God. So I was kind of encouraged to, even though she believed in a higher power, I was encouraged to go seek it for myself and, read everything.
Yeah. So that's like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying most people I meet, it's not like that. So yeah, I have that, whatever that did to me.
Yeah, it's like that. It's kind of like a Gnostic attitude where I don't need a church to talk to God. I don't need like a hierophant or like a priest to explain God to me. I think that's a pretty healthy place to come from.
Yes, I appreciate it now. I think maybe when I was younger, I thought maybe I missed something, but I don't think I did. I feel pretty okay. And I even remember when I was little, I had like this best friend. I don't know, I was pretty young. And it was, I guess, sometime in the 80s, and, she was really religious, and they went to church, and she was like so upset and crying that I was going to go to hell because the world was about to end.
Right.
And I'm this little kid, and I'm like, what is she so fucking upset about? Like, what? And so I went to my mother, and she's like, honey, I don't think the world's ending. I could be wrong. You're not going to hell. And she pointed to my head. She's like, hell's right here. Like, right.
Wow.
And she's like, but your friend and her family, they love you and they're concerned. So if they want you to go to church with them this Sunday, go ahead if it makes them more relaxed. So I did. I went to like Vacation Bible School.
Yeah.
And
I was just gonna.
That was an experience.
I was just gonna say, I bet you they were Southern Baptists.
They were.
Yeah, of course. We all thought the world was gonna end every fucking half an hour back then.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, that's interesting. Because I relate to that. Like my, when I started getting out of like religion, not that I was ever super into it as a kid, but, I would be like, I'm an atheist, and my
right.
and my stepmom was like, no, honey, you're not. Like, you don't want to go to hell. And I'm like, fuck that. Like, this world is hell. Like, what are you talking about? Like the peak, like there was like gnosis creeping into me already. And
right.
I was like, she was like, it's okay. Well, I'm going to die first and I'll pray for you. And then you can come to heaven. And I'm like, I don't even think you know how that works. Like, it doesn't work like that.
She found a loophole.
She thought she could outsmart God. If I just pray for him when I get to the other side, like, it'll be okay. I'm like, all right, I guess then me, you, and Hitler can all hang out together in heaven. So did you have it sounds like your mom was pretty cool. Did you have like a creepy aunt or something to kind of help you along your journey?
Like,
okay, so like,
my aunt popped in my head.
No, okay,
Actually,
so...
okay, let's go with that. All
okay,
right,
go ahead.
My aunt in the 80s, I was attending psychic parties at her house, and it would be like, and it's really cool when I think about it as an adult, because it would be like, I don't know, 10, 15 women, right? And wine and fucking cheese cut up, and my aunt would make her famous lasagna and all this stuff. And this dude, Mike, his name was Mike, this dude would come over and read tarot cards.
Okay.
And they'd pay him. Okay? So you have a guy, he's invited over to an all-female party. Okay? He's getting fed, he's getting drunk, and they're paying him $10 to read their tarot cards.
Yeah, and he's surrounded by a bunch of drunk... And he's surrounded by a bunch of drunk chicks. Like, I mean, that...
Right.
I sound... You know, it sounds like I'm in the wrong racket.
And yeah, so creepy aunt, that was my aunt.
Yeah, I had a weird aunt too that helped me along my way. So, is that kind of when you started getting into all this kind of stuff?
No, honestly, and this is kind of like a weird, I don't know, whatever. Before that, when I was 7, my father died when I was 7, and I remember sitting outside at 7. I remember sitting outside, like in the grass or whatever, and I remember like thinking, the fuck is, like, what is life? You know, like, what does it mean that my father died? Like, what does that mean? Like, so I started like questioning everything. So that's kind of when I started.
So what you're saying is that you like had an existential crisis at 7 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, that was like the initial kind of part of it. So where So where did you go like next? Like, what did you like pick up, or you know, is that where the aunt figures in, or was there a step in between that?
No, when I was little, I guess when I was that little, no, probably just started reading stuff about ghosts and anything like that, and what did we have in search of, and you know what I mean? Like, I just started getting into anything like that. When I was little.
In search of was, I think it was a gateway drug for a lot of folks.
It was. And it can't be redone.
Well, they got like the guy who rebooted Spock is like rebooting In Search of, and I'm like, what, is he just going to steal Leonard Nimoy's whole career? Like, what?
Like the whole thing, right? So I started there. I got into that kind of stuff, and then of course I had the aunt with the psychic parties and past life regressions and all that stuff. And I'm hanging around. I'm not hanging around men at all. There's no men in my life. Like, so it's like all these ladies in the 80s, like fucking going to these classes and stuff and getting any kind of reading you could possibly get, they got. And dudes coming over the house to read tarot cards. So then I had a whole period of that. And then by the time I was a teenager, I was allowed to have my first deck. So then I got into that. And then
okay. I gotta slow you down for a second. So when you were hanging around the aunt and doing the readings, would they let you get readings done? Like, were they doing like past life regressions on you when you were like
No, I was just there, like,
hanging out, getting exposed to it.
Yes, exactly.
So what was your first deck of tarot cards?
The Crowley deck.
You got the Crowley deck first? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I did.
You just jumped right in there. Do you think it's fair to say that most people have the Rider deck? That's like the first deck?
Yes, it is. It's like the starter. Yeah, it is.
Well, it comes with that book that kind of explains everything. And, I mean, Crowley just drops you in the middle of it without any kind of rhyme or reason, right?
Right. It did come with the book, though.
Oh, it did? Okay.
Somebody. Yeah. It's a really good book. I still have it.
Mine didn't come with a book. God damn it. So did you start like learning them and going through them, or was it just kind of like hey, I got tarot
but I
cards?
was also like 15, so it was like who's my true love, and here Susie, let me read yours too. It was like, kind of like that.
Okay. Well, there's legitimacy in that,
Right.
Yeah.
And at 15, or even now, even as an adult, that might be the first place you go, just when you're like, I'm going to do this. And,
Yeah, my wife's friends will just call her and she'll just be like, can you flip a card over for me? I'm going into a job interview. She's like, I'm trying to get ready for work, bitch.
I do draw a card every morning as kind of like a meditation, or do you know what I mean? Not like, oh God, I got this, and not like that. Just like, okay, it's that kind of day. All right.
So do you keep track of them? Like, do you like jot down what you get every day?
No, I should.
I think that might be interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there are days when they're like, I'll have a week where I'll get the same cards a lot. So.
See, that's interesting. Huh.
Do you do any of that or no?
No, I don't do any of it.
You just kind of study the.
I just study it, and I'm working on my deck.
Yes.
But
your deck is really, really good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I gotten a little bit of pushback here and there about some stuff, but I just pretty much dismiss it. I'm like, you haven't read what I read, just shut up, Which is probably an unhealthy way of going about it, but
like you put up the lovers today, and the first thing I noticed was like the sword was in the ground, and I'm like, yes, I love that. Like that, I love that.
Yeah, it's all about the fucking, So do you recall ever having like a moment of enlightenment, like where you're just like, oh, I used to think like that, but now I see the world like this, like a moment of realization, like your eye opening or something like that?
Like a single moment, or
yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No, probably because you weren't grounded in like religion at an early age.
Oh, maybe. Maybe.
That's interesting.
Did you?
Well, I think that when I was attending my mom's church, I think that I was attracted to the power that our preacher had. And I was like, one day I think I want to preach, And I mean, not like he was not like he's like wielding power over, these pressure, but I looked at it kind of like stand-up comedian, like I'm like, wow, he's just out there saying all this wild shit just by himself and everyone's looking at him, And in the same way, I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I think I always wanted to kind of do like a preacher shtick. And, but I think the first time that I was ever like, hey, I think that there might be something to this, but totally not in the way that I grew up doing it.
Right.
It's when I was reading this book called Holy Blood and Holy Grail by Lincoln and Bayonne, and it's basically what Dan Brown ripped off to do the Da Vinci Code, But he in the book they're going through this. They're talking about the Cathars, who's this group of Gnostics in the Languedoc region of France. And something really spoke to me about that stuff. And this was probably I don't know, back in the early
90s?
Yeah. I mean, like I was like trolling the internet for like Freemasons are actually controlling the planet and they're covering up UFOs. So like I was into all of it, but I don't think I started taking it seriously until I was like, what is this Gnostic business all about? And then it was just like, I was in a whirlwind. Like I couldn't get enough of it. And like, I'm still kind of drowning in that, the, whirlpool still. But yeah, I guess it's funny that I still, at least once a week I fire up my microphone and talk some crazy shit and tell jokes.
You're doing it. You're living the dream.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I like coffee, bonfires, walks on the beach, old books. But you know what I really like? The paranormal. Strange stories and experiences, psychic phenomena. So, if you're interested, come join me and read an open mind and a healthy dose of skepticism. And let's see what happens.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
It was about, so they were talking about these Templar knights that would trample on the cross, because they were like, they secretly didn't believe in Jesus. So that's the way that they would do it. They would spit and trample on the cross. And I was like, wow, man, that's fucking like hardcore, So I think that's when I decided to take a kind of harder look at the whole thing. But have you ever read that book?
Yes, I have the book.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. So
that was a hot topic then, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing came out in the 80s, and I mean, it started to become like a hot thing, and then by the time Dan Brown ripped it off, everyone had kind of forgotten about it.
Right.
But I was over my buddy's house, whose dad was like this super high-ranking Freemason, and he had all these books, and so like we would get hammered, and then when they would go to bed, I would sneak into his library and read all these books all the time.
You're like in the corner.
Yeah, I'm just like, hey, just don't worry about me. Yeah, you guys finish watching wrestling. I'll be over here. This is a weird situation, but. So, do you consider yourself like a pagan or a Wiccan or like a magician? Like, if you had to label yourself, how would you do it?
I don't.
You don't?
Well, I might throw out the witch memes and stuff because it's fun, right? But no, I don't call myself anything. Like I think. Okay, you want to know what I believe, right?
Yeah.
It's all very personal. It's your journey. You are all the cards in the deck. It's the great work. It's your work to do. You know what I mean? Like, and that's, do I believe in God or powers? Yeah, I do. But I believe that I need to filter that through myself and go through all the stages and whatever, grow. I don't know.
Well, I
So
mean,
I don't know.
what's the point of going through a journey if you know where it ends, I guess, you know?
Right. Right. So I don't know. I don't call myself anything, which is
It's funny because a lot of people really get divisive about this topic. They're like, no, I'm not a pagan.
I'm not a
Yeah, like, and it always reminds me of like, I went to art school, right? And it always reminded me of like the neo-punk kids being like, I'm more punk rock than you. And no, I'm more punk rock than you. Cause like my stuff goes back farther. And you're just like, whoa. I'm like, hey, children, you know, hold on for a second. But, yeah, I think that's a healthy way to look at it. So would you mind telling us about your practice a little bit, or is that a little too personal?
Like what I do in a day,
like, you know, what, you know,
what if someone that doesn't call themselves anything do?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. No, like, you know, like, okay, so do you have an altar?
Oh, I do. I have an altar. I think there's something. Okay, so when you study everything, you can just read about it or you can experiment with it. Does that make sense? Like direct knowledge. Okay. So, I have an altar. I didn't always have one. I'm exploring what it means to have an altar and how that's useful to my work. So I think after playing with it for a little while, I think it's all the mind, obviously, but I think that having a space set up does something. Like it makes, I don't know how to describe it. Like you're actively, instead of, we were just talking about using our imagination, which is really important in any of this stuff, but it's actively, physically creating a space. And actually, I have an episode recorded that talks about this, so that's cool. But it's actively creating the space with symbols, because that's how spirit, God, or whatever talks in symbols, like the language of the birds, green language, all of that stuff. So you're actively creating a space, not just with your imagination, but with physical objects. And then you see that, you know, you walk past it, you light a candle on it, it becomes part of your reality, like it becomes more concrete instead of just imagining. If that might have been really weird.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it's weird at all. I think that, you know, having an altar, having like a dedicated area, it's kind of like why we wear suits to job interviews, right? It's like, right. You know, do you have to wear the suit to go to work? No, but you have to wear the suit to show someone how fucking serious you are about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
And
so,
you know,
so
like,
I have one now. I'm working with that now, like exploring that right now. I do have that. I do draw a card every day. Actually, I draw a rune every day because that's what I feel more naturally. Like I feel like I understand them easily, where like the cards or something, not so much. Like it's not like easy.
Well, it's hard to boil cards down.
Go ahead. What?
I was just saying it's hard to boil one card down because so much of it is how they're read in context, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So I do the runes every morning, and that's just like a meditative thing, like something to go, okay, that's like horoscopes are like that, and people dismiss, and they are generic in the sense, like, here's your horoscope for today, Capricorn. Like, um, it's the sun sign, so it's just the sun sign. And like anything else, you're not just that. You're your entire, all the planets. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to be pretty skeptical as far as astrology is concerned. And it's funny because people would be like, what's your sign or whatever? And I'd be like, oh, I'm an Aries. And they're like, of course you're fucking Aries.
You are, you are definitely.
And recently my wife worked out my birth chart.
Mm-hmm. And it showed you so much more, right?
Well, when I say she worked it out, I don't mean like she had the star charts and like graphs and stuff. Like she was using a website to do it. And she sent it to me and I was like, okay, well, I looked at it. I'm like, okay, well, some of this looks interesting, but it's like 18 pages of nonsense. So I'm going to have to read it later. So I got into it the next day and I started reading it and like, like I shit you not, like I had like a pucker factor. Like it literally was like giving me goosebumps.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, like 8 pages in, it had mentioned 4 times that I would be obsessed with the occult or philosophy or religion or hidden things. And I'm like, why does it keep saying this over and over again? You know? And, yeah, like it was like eye-opening. I got on the phone with my dad and I'm like, I'm sending you a link. You have to do this. And you have to report back to me within 2 weeks. Yeah. But yeah, I'm actually trying to figure out how to do an episode about it. I don't want to be like, hey, everybody, we're going to go over my birth chart. And I don't know enough about astrology. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, literally, it shook the ground I was sitting on. And like, I was talking to my wife like 2 days later and I'm like, it's a bummer, you know, like I thought that I had free will like all these years on this planet. Like,
and this makes it like, oh shit.
It's like, this is what Neo felt like when he realized what the Matrix was, you know?
I had the same thing happen when I did mine back in the, whatever that was, the 90s. But I did mine and there was this part. First of all, I'm only a Capricorn sun sign, which I do relate to Capricorn, but everything else is like Sagittarius, so, and a little Virgo in there. So I'm like a goat-headed virgin on fire. All right. So anyway, so I got my chart done. And did yours have something like Sabian symbols? You'll have to look.
I'll have to look at it. Yeah.
So this one that somebody did for me, it had this Sabian symbol thing. And one of the things I got, it was like so specific that like it was creepy. It was like something about head wound or whatever. So my father died of an aneurysm. So I mean, It was that specific. It was like really
Jesus
freaky. And so if you look at your, I became obsessed a little bit. Not enough because astrology is really fucking complicated.
Yeah.
But enough to check out my own whatever planets and stuff like that. So Chiron is one of my favorites. So if you look at that one, Chiron is like a Greek god. He was wounded, like the wounded healer. And Venus loved Aries, right? The god of war. She loved him, but she also loved Chiron, the wounded guy, right? So your Chiron on your chart is your greatest wound. So you can kind of learn a lot about yourself looking at that. And then that goes into shadow work and all that good stuff. But yeah, look at yours. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, I'm going to have to dig it back out and check it out.
Yeah, so yeah, astrology.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that, you know, not on any podcast or whatever, but like, I was like lamenting. I was like, you know, if I do this show long enough, I'm going to have to fucking learn astrology.
And there's another cool thing, the houses.
Yeah.
I don't hear people talk about that, but when I look at my own chart, I have to look at it because every fucking planet is in one house. Except for one. So everything is in house 3, which is the house of communication. So I'm like, all right, what does that mean? What the fuck do I do with that? You know, what am I supposed to be doing? So, but look at yours to see if it's spread out or because the houses represent things.
Yeah, I am going to have to look at it. I don't have it on me. So, I mean, I can't just flip it or whatever. But yeah, so, you know, if all your planets are in, you know, the house of communication, you should start a podcast.
Right?
Yeah.
There we go.
So, I know that you do meditation work too, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I have,
tell me about it.
First of all, okay, so I'm a little kid. I'm kind of have a Gnostic mother. And then we go through the witchy stuff. You know, my father dies. I want to know the meaning of life, whatever. So then I go through the teen years, you know, the witchy, whatever stuff. And then after I had kids, I ended up being a single mom after a couple of years. Not like after 5, 6 years, whatever. And don't make fun of me, but I had 2 boys. I have 2 boys, and so I was like celibate for like a decade because I didn't want to date and have my boys like, here's dad number 5.
Right.
I didn't want to do that, so I sacrificed any kind of romantic stuff, and so I had a lot of free time. So I read more and I meditated and I did all that crazy stuff, but I did that for a consistent amount of time. So I have journals. What like the inner planes. So like if you do the work and get used to meditating, when you go into like these trance states, it's like dreaming, right? But you're awake, I guess. And so you'll have these, I guess part of it is your imagination because you create the space, but then things come into the space, scenes and whatever. And then you just write it down. Like that's what I would do. I'd write it down, and it's pretty interesting. It's another way to explore, I guess.
Yeah, I'm super interested in it. Now, I'm sure I've told you a bunch of times, like I have a hard time doing it, and I'm just keep trying and just keep trying and trying to do it. I'm working on the Crowley's method from Libra 4 is how I'm working on it now. And basically what he says is put yourself in an uncomfortable position. And that will, like, you know, because a lot of people will be like, lay down, you know, get comfortable in this. And basically, I think that if he heard that, he would be like, no, that's all wrong. That's all wrong. What you have to do is, you know, he's got like he uses 4 examples of these really weird positions. And like one of them is like the thunderbolt. It's like you got to put your heel on your anus and all this weird stuff. And I'm like,
I see that one when I'm doing like reading about these other dudes and stuff.
And I'm like, I don't know. I think I saw a chick do that on Pornhub the other day. Like, I'm not sure about it. So, you know, I thought that was cool because I actually kind of like started to have like a little breakthrough with it. Like instead of relaxing to kind of give yourself an obstacle to get over. Yeah, is kind of the way I thought about it. Yeah. So that's interesting. It's an ongoing story. You know, like I feel kind of like a jerk whenever I talk about it because I'm not very good at it at all.
But you're working on it.
I am working on it for sure. Slow and steady. So, so do you have a book you would recommend for someone who like is at the beginning of their path?
Ah, oh, I don't know. I guess that's what we're doing. We're
Yeah. I guess, yeah,
pulling
you're right.
down old books.
I would
Um,
say read them all. Read everything you get your hands on.
well, I think you have to follow like the synchronicity or you have to follow um what you feel drawn to. So like you might start out fucking drumming in a circle or something. You know what I mean? You might start out over here and then somehow you get turned on to this shit over here and then you just kind of follow it. Well, that's great advice. But
No,
that's
no,
my,
it's cool. Well, when you hear musicians talking about their influences, a lot of great musicians say, well, the guy that really influenced me, I figured out who really influenced him, and I went back and listened to that guy's stuff. And I feel like it's kind
like
of
that.
yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the same way. You have to find the threshold, like kind of like where all the new age gibberish starts, and then just push past that, and then
Right.
and then like find like the old stuff.
Right.
And so I can't remember which episode it was, but it was one just recently where I was talking about weight, and I like cried out for your help on on the show. I was like I think that Lisa said that Wait's wife said that they had a pure marriage when he died. Is that true? Are you the one that told me that?
No. Well, maybe. But no, McGregor.
McGregor, okay. That's right.
Mona,
okay, so
yeah, his wife, it said that they had a pure marriage. Yeah.
right. Okay, so I probably fucked that up. I probably owe them an apology. I'll make a little note right here.
I'm sorry, wait.
Right. I'm sure your marriage wasn't pure. Okay, so
and that was Dion Fortune's and I'm really obsessed. You know how we have these secret little side I don't know, little side obsessions, as we're studying stuff, there's just certain little stuff that we put over to the side because
yeah.
Well, mine's Witch Wars. So I'm studying the stuff and I'm I was reading all this Randolph stuff, PB Randolph, and his, I don't know what to call it. I think of it as Witch Wars. I don't know. But his adversary, his whatever arch nemesis was Blavatsky. She thought he revealed too much, that he was too loud. And then so Dion Fortune, Mona Mathers, Dion Fortune left the Golden Dawn because she felt threatened by Mona Mathers psychically. She thought she was being attacked. And she got reprimanded for, I think, the first book that she wrote, which, great, I should know this, but that she revealed too much.
Was her first book her Kabbalah book?
I think it was, and they and she got reprimanded that how dare she reveal so much to the public, and it actually bothered her. They said she couldn't sleep at night for a while. She was really I didn't realize I did that. I didn't mean to, and then she left and formed her own group,
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's my little secret, whatever, secret side thing.
What are do you have any plans for the podcast?
I'm just kind of, huh?
Do you have any special cooking or?
Oh, what I'm working on? I have I have a Buckland inspired one already recorded, and no, honestly, right now I have that one, so I'm safe. I have that one recorded, but I don't know what I want to do next. I'm kind of waiting for some kind of weird little inspiration or something. And I'll find it.
Yeah, of course. Did you know that there's a Buckland Museum in Cleveland?
Yes, I saw that, like on Instagram, like yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because that's kind of like I'm from that area, so next time I go home,
You're like, okay.
I'm dragging. Yeah, we gotta go to Buckland. Okay, so how about you do your plugs, and then we'll wrap this sucker up.
Okay. So what am I saying? Check out my podcast, The Immortal Hour. It's not everywhere yet, but it is on Spotify and some other places, Anchor. You can find me on Instagram at, what is it, Immortal Hour Pod. And if you want to send me an email and tell me what my next episode should be, since I don't know, it's immortalhourpod@gmail.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I appreciate it. I always love talking to you, and good luck on your show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
And I owe you a Hecate. It's still, so don't let me forget.
Okay, I won't.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.